Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you all to the webinar on national reporting and with a special focus on PCBs. Today I'm here with my colleague Augustine Hart that will do the presentation on PCBs, but I will do a first introduction to the national reporting, as has been for all this series. So for any one of you that already followed one of our previous webinars on national reporting, this will be the same presentation, a slightly shorter version, and then we will go into the specifics on PCBs together with Augustine. So I think we are quite many already in the room. So without further ado, I will start my part of the presentation. I'm Lina Fortelius. I'm the coordinator of national reporting under the Stockholm Convention. I'm working for the Science and Technical Assistant branch together with my colleague Augustine. And I'm very happy to welcome you all today. So we will first have a look at the basis of reporting and why parties reports are important for the function of the convention. We will then move to study the online electronic reporting system that parties use to submit their information, what it looks like, and what functionalities it has. In the third section, we will make an overview of the contents of the report and what types of information is requested and discuss a bit where that information could be found. And then I will just briefly say something about the dashboard that the Secretariat has on its website, where all the results of submitted reports are shown. And finally, then we will move into PCBs today. So then I will give over the floor to Augustine. So let's start by looking at why we need to report. Article 15 of the Stockholm Convention, you see here on the screen, require each party to report periodically to the Conference of the Parties on the measures it has taken to implement the provisions of the Convention and on the effectiveness of such measures in preventing the objectives of the Convention. So the second paragraph of Article 15 specifies certain information, including production, import, and export of chemicals listed in Annexes A and B. However, the questions covered by the reporting format go far beyond these topics, as you will notice in the next slides. The Convention has also decided that the reporting should take place every 4 years. For the sixth report, the deadline is 31st August 2026. For submitting the reports, an electronic reporting system has been developed, and it's very similar to also this electronic reporting system for the Basel Convention National Report. So anyone who works for both convention or have been working for Basel could see the similarities. To help you out, each new national report is pre-filled with the information from the previous reporting reports that the parties have submitted. So you do not have to re-enter data that has not changed. And you will need to enter new data, and if previous data has been revised, for example, an inventory has been updated, and data from previous periods have been modified with more accurate values, or there are other corrections, you will need to replace the existing data with the revised information. And the reporting system is constantly maintained and updated to reflect the changes in the convention. So the Secretariat updates the questionnaire to include any new chemicals, and the reporting their reporting needs listed in Annexes A, B, and C. to the convention between the reporting cycles. 2 manuals have been developed to help parties in filling in the reports. One for the use of the reporting system and one assisting with the contents of the report. And for the 6th report, the manual on the how to fill in and the contents of the report has been updated to include the most recent changes and also to be a bit more user-friendly. You find this all these guidance on our website, but I can also send you, and there are also the links in this presentation, which is also found on our website under this webinar. So why is reporting important? Reporting is an obligation under the Stockholm Convention, but in addition to that, it is very useful for your country. It's like a checklist to follow how your country is meeting its obligations under the convention, and also to identify gaps and priorities in implementation. And it can help to update the national implementation plan. Now that the convention finally has a compliance mechanism set up, reporting will also provide important input to its work. National reporting also provides input to several assessments that are carried out under the convention to monitor its efficiency. So these include the effectiveness evaluation that is carried out every 6 years, and monitoring the progress of phase out of PCBs, as well as work to phase out production and use of PFAS. So let's have a look at what kind of information is generally required in the reporting. First and foremost, as the convention requires implementation of prohibitions for production, use, import, and export, you need to review your national legislation. So new legislation or other measures to manage POPs at different stages of their life cycle are relevant and requested in the report. Your national implementation plan is also, there are also questions related to that. The same can be said for any release, emission, or waste inventories that your country has produced since the previous reporting. You will also need the most recent data on production, import, export, use, or disposal of the POPs. And there are also some very general requests for information related to various articles of the convention, such as information exchange, public information awareness and education, research, development and monitoring, technical assistance, financial resources and mechanisms, or the effectiveness evaluation. Some of the needs for the report are qualitative and some are quantitative. And in this slide, I will present the summary of numerical information that you should try to identify in your country. So first, the source inventories and release estimates for the 6 chemicals or groups of unintentionally produced POPs in Annex C. This information may not be available for all groups, but you do the best you can. Sometimes inventories are more detailed and sometimes could be more general estimates. The production, use, import, and export data on the intentionally produced chemicals in Annex A or B. This information may be sometimes a bit difficult to find, especially for chemicals that have not been produced in your country or that are not registered. As, for example, pesticides are usually registered. So it's sometimes more easy to find this information for the pesticides. Then we have the PCB equipment, articles and materials in different concentration categories. So The PCB inventory has a dedicated part in the questionnaire, and Augustin will talk later a bit more in detail about this in his presentation. Information on production and use of PFOS is also requested based on the PFOS listing decision. And finally, the amount of POPs waste destroyed in your country, imported to or exported from your country. So the information that is needed for reporting will not be available in any single source. But the national focal point, who is usually responsible for filling in the report, will need to consult several sources for the information, and or whoever is the technical support to fill in the report in your country. And the main source is likely the national implementation plan, especially if it has been recently updated. And any national inventories on uses, production, or emissions for POPs are useful when as well, if only available. And in case national inventories has not been prepared for a chemical, you can use the POPs inventory guidance documents to find out where the chemicals may have been used and identify the sectors who may have some information for you. So that can be a first step, and please put any estimates and the first step inventory information that any country can do, just to identify sectors or where the POP can have been used. Then we have also the annual reports and statistics published by other ministries and agencies that could be useful. So these could be, for example, pollutant registries, pesticide statistics, and any other statistics relevant. And similarly, any POPs related projects, report by academia and other sectors are useful. There is also industry surveys, especially on local use, availability on alternatives, etc. But although they may be difficult to get and sometimes confidential, there's still they can still be informative for you. And finally, it should be stressed that the direct interviews with experts, whether from academia or industry or trade, will be useful to understand what is going on in your country. There's a lot to learn, and make sure that you document this in the comments section to remember it for the next report in 4 years. Reporting is also very closely linked to the national implementation plan. We have a separate session on national reporting and NIPs tomorrow, that we will go into more details on this. But on one hand, the NIP is an important source of information, taking stock of what is available and what is missing. And reporting requires you to provide detailed information on restrictions, including legislative references and as well as on available inventories. And filling in the reporting format is also a great way to get in touch with other authorities and experts in the country. But on the other hand, the reporting format and the process in filling in the report can be used as a checklist to identify missing or incomplete elements in the NIP and national implementation in your country. So when something that is needed in the reporting is not available, you can include that in the next NIP update as an action item. So the electronic reporting system functions. You can find a link to the current reporting, the 6th reporting on the convention's website under countries, and then the sub-item reporting and electronic reporting system. And there you will also find a link to click here to get to the national report. And please also note that on the left-hand side is the link to the guidance that I talked earlier about in my presentation, as well as the manual of the national report. And to access ERS, 2 accounts containing username and the password have been sent to the official contact point in January this year. And the report can only be submitted from the OCP account, but the technical account can fill in the full report. And in case you have lost the account login name or password, you can press the account recovery functionality link. Just bear in mind that when you use the account recovery functionality, the credentials will only be sent to the OCP email that was communicated to the Secretariat and is existing in the Secretariat database. So it's only the OCP and the country and the email that the Secretariat has on its website that will receive that information. And the OCP needs then to share the technical username and password with all the staff that needs to fill in the report. So the technical staff can also directly ask the Secretariat or myself to get the credentials, but in that case, we will need to go through the OCP and have the OCP approved that the Secretariat send the technical details to the technical person. So how to fill in the questionnaire? I will only go into very briefly into this as we don't have so much time during this presentation except for the PCB part, but I wanted to give a brief introductory. How to get started to fill in the report. You review and update the pre-filled data from previous reporting cycles and try to include new legislation, inventories that have been updated, and data and initiative on POPs in your country. And ensure the reports reflect the cumulative information since entry into force of the convention. And please also indicate the year of measures taken or data collected. And if a country has not submitted a previous report, please complete the report in full, meaning that please complete the report as of the convention entered it into force for your country. When you open the reporting format, you will see that it includes the information from previous rounds to help you with filling in the report. So as I already previously said, the bans and restrictions of old POPs may not be needed to be changed if they have been reported in earlier reports and there is no update or change. And sometimes legislative references may need to be changed, but the information can otherwise be kept the same. Each reporting cycle is also an opportunity for you to update previously provided information. So any necessary to correct previously reported data or to create a single complete report. And here is an overview of the reporting system. So on the left-hand side, you can see the side toolbar where you can access all 24 different parts of the report. And these parts are explained in detail in the manual for national reporting. And the report has 25 pages as there is an introductory page as well explaining what has been updated since the previous report. As mentioned before, the interface of the electronic reporting system is dynamic. Some questions offer multiple choices, and the user can select the most suitable answer out of a list of options, which then may open additional questions. For example, if a question requires you to answer like here, yes, currently being developed, or no, once you select your answer, there could be additional questions appearing. So in case your answer is yes, you could be expected to give additional information on what has been done. And in case your answer is no, you may be requested to specify the reasons why nothing has been done. The system will also guide you at all times on how to fill in the questionnaire, and it will warn you when it detects missing or incorrect forms of data when clicking the Check for Errors button. And this is just an informational warning. It will not prevent you from moving to another page, from one page to another, or to submit your report. But it gives you an idea of possible errors. And once the information for the report has been compiled, reviewed, and the reporting format is satisfactorily filled in, the OCP can submit it to the Secretariat, accompanied with any additional notes or supporting documentation added in the previous section. So the Secretariat has updated this report to that any country can upload up to 5 additional supporting documents if there is a need. And as I said earlier, please note that the submission is not available for the NFP, so the technical account cannot submit the report, and it has to be submitted through the official contact point. And I also want to stress that the 6th cycle deadline is 31st August this year, and it's a good time now to prepare all the information and try to collect all the data needed to be able to submit the report on time. So quickly, just a few final remarks about filling in the report. The reporting format is long and has many questions and a lot of data needs. So it takes time to sit down and think what is it that the question actually is asking, and try to respond to all questions. Even partial answers will help, especially now with the compliance committee. We'll probably also be looking more in detail on the all parties reports. So it's good to try to answer. And maybe you don't have the numerical data for inventory, but you can answer that these and these industry are using it in your country. That is a first step, for example. It's important that you're clear with where the gaps are, and even small pieces of information may be a seed for further work. And use the comment fields to add relevant background information and links. It will be very useful for your country in the future as well. And take note of information you do not have. So make sure to raise those issues once your NIP will be updated. Gaps in reporting data make a great and well-justified action item for seeking funding. So the reports are all the submitted data of reports are shown in a dashboard that is stored in on the Secretariat website. And here you can find a lot of information related to previous reports submitted by your country, but also regional information, and any data that might be interesting for you if you are looking for information. And as you can see, just as my last slide, this is statistics on the reports that have been submitted so far. So we have around 50 parties that have submitted the national reports for each cycle. However, on time, the percentage is much lower. And of course, we hope that parties will make an effort for the sixth report to send in their reports on time by 31st August to make sure that all the other internal processes in the Secretariat that needs the data to further processes can use them and submit them on time to the COP. Thank you so much. This was my part of this webinar. I will now give over the floor to Augustin Hart for the PCB section.
Thanks a lot, Lina, for that quick but very important reminder of the main functions of the national reports. I assume by now, with all the webinars, that everybody is already an expert on national reports. So we will go a bit deeper now into a specific section of the report, which is addressing the sound management of PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls. Lina, can you confirm that you're seeing the screen? Yes, right.
It is loading. It's coming. Just a moment. Yes,
Okay.
now we can see it.
Perfect. While I'll do the presentation, I haven't seen much activity on the chat, but I invite everyone who has a question to Lina or to my presentation to use the Q&A function or the chat, whatever suits you best, to put your questions there. We will have a few minutes at the end also if someone would like to speak and make a comment or question as well. So everybody is invited. Thanks a lot for having me. My name is Augustin Hart. I work with Lina in the Science and Technical Assistance branch of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention Secretariats. And one of the topics I lead, supporting parties in implementing their obligations under the Stockholm Conventions, is the sound management of PCBs. Why are PCBs relevant to the Stockholm Convention? As I'm sure you know, these chemicals were listed as one of the initial persistent organic pollutants under the convention, with a particular feature, which was the establishment of some targets or deadlines under the convention. As any chemical listed on the convention, parties had to ban the production, the commerce, and any new uses of PCBs. You may know that PCBs were used both in electric equipment, so closed applications, but also in open applications for their flame retardant properties, such as sealants, paints, and caulks. And under the Stockholm Convention, we have several provisions on PCBs. One of them is that parties need to make determined efforts to identify, label, and remove from use, so basically phase out the use of any equipment like transformers and electric capacitors that contain PCBs by 2025 in a concentration above 50 milligrams per kilogram or 50 ppms. And the second goal that we have established under the Stockholm Convention is 2028. So parties need to make determined efforts to ensure the environmentally sound management or environmentally sound disposal of any PCB waste, which includes liquids, contaminated equipment, and other types of waste, again, above 50 ppm concentration of PCBs. There's also provisions for these open applications. So parties need to identify articles that are containing PCBs in open applications and ensure the management in an environmentally sound manner. And for international trade, for exports and imports, PCBs may only be exported or imported for the purpose of environmentally sound disposal. Just as a reminder, of course, PCBs are also produced unintentionally. We had a webinar, I think yesterday, on unintentional POPs. PCBs are one of them. They're produced and released from several processes. So there are also provisions under this particular article of unintentional POPs. And the final provision I want to highlight here is that under the convention, it was established that every 5 years, parties may have to report on their progress on eliminating PCBs. And this early, in the early implementation of the Stockholm Convention, it was decided to integrate this obligation as part of the national reports and put it in the cycle of the four-year cycle of the national reports. This is why, if you go to the national reports, as Lina explained, you will find a particular section, section C, which will focus, I focus my presentation here, which is talking about PCBs and the information required from parties to understand if they have made progress or not in the elimination and phase out of PCBs. So part C is divided in 3 sections. The first one is on the identification of stockpiles and waste contaminated with PCBs. Section 2 of Part C is about the measures and the management that has been done at the national level. And Section 3 focuses on the destruction or disposal of the PCB containing materials. I will go quickly through the questions and I will highlight some important information and aspects to consider before responding to those questions. So in the first section, we have 3 particular questions that are talking about strategies. Strategies, question number 1, strategies for identifying stockpiles. When we talk about stockpiles, we should think about barrels of oil, or you may have noticed in my previous slide, PCBs cannot be used anymore. So if you have any stockpiles identified in the past, they should or should in the future be managed as PCB waste and ensure its extraction. Question number 2 is about strategies for identifying products and articles, including waste, so any kind of material or equipment containing or contaminated with PCBs. And the third one is strategies for identifying open applications. For each of these questions, you have the option of responding yes or no. If you have developed any strategy, then you can indicate which years you have taken measures under this strategy. It's important that you indicate at least the first year that you have taken a measure so that we know when you have started the work on identifying these PCB containing materials. And you can also have the option of describing which kind of strategies, which kind of activities you have developed at the national or local level for identifying these PCB containing materials. So for each question, you can indicate the year and indicate the measures. If we jump now to questions 4, 5, and 6, questions 4, just one previous comment here. Lina mentioned this. The national report is strictly linked to national implementation plans. So if you had an initial national implementation plan or an updated one where you addressed the issue on PCBs, I'm sure you have developed some strategies or action plan to implement. So this is a very important source of information for these 3 questions. Jumping to question number 4, measures to ensure PCBs is managed in an environmentally sound manner. So here we talk about measures for the handling, for the collection, for transportation, storage, and disposal. These may include regulatory measures or legislation at the national or at the local level that enforce or makes mandatory to ensure that this environmental sound management, but can also be other kinds of measures such as adoption of technical guidelines or environmental standards, or the implementation of projects who have promoted the sound management of PCBs. Questions 5 and 6 address another important aspect of PCB management, which is contaminated sites. So also addressing one of the obligations of the Stockholm Convention, which is to reduce or eliminate releases of POPs from contaminated sites. Countries may develop strategies for identifying these contaminated sites, and if identified, then report of any contaminated site. Unfortunately, we have received several reports from parties that they have identified in the past contaminated sites, so it's important to indicate the year of these sites. But I want to a word of caution here, of course, because each country may have its own definition of what a contaminated site entails. So it's important to reflect what the provisions and what has the country established as a contaminated site before informing. A temporary storage facility with contaminated equipment, with contaminated oil, will not usually be considered a contaminated site. It's a temporary storage facility. But this, again, would be up to each country and competent authorities to define and report. For each of the sections 1, 2, and 3, at the end of a section, you have a space to provide comments or questions to any of the previous questions. And many parties have used this to provide further explanations or information on the specific legislation or clarifications of any of your responses. So I invite you to use these and as a tool to improve our understanding of what you are reporting in your national reports. Jumping to section 2, which is completely addressing the measures that have been taken at the national level. Questions 7 and 8 and 9 talk about the measures to identify and label PCB equipment, identify and label PCB waste, and identify and manage PCB in open applications. Again, the question is, has your country adopted measures for these purposes? And the first answer is yes or no. If yes, then you can inform the year of the measures, of the initial measures that have been taken, and then you have the opportunity to expand information on what kind of measures for each of these questions you have adopted. If no, then you also have the option to explain what were the challenges and the reasons behind not the adoption of these measures. Again, I want to highlight for these questions that we are talking about identification and labeling. So capacities, for example, on analytical capacities, so required labs to test and assess PCB content in different materials would be a very key point to address in the countries. If there is no analytical capacity, there will be less chances that there is a complete strategy for identifying and labeling PCBs. Of course, legislation is also a key aspect, whether there is a requirement for example, testing transformers and equipment and label once they have been identified with PCB content. So different aspects of the PCB management necessary to identify and label the different types of PCB materials. Sorry, this should be, yeah, and question 9 on open applications. If you have responded yes, and if you have identified what type of measures you have implemented in the country, then you can also report, and I'm just giving you an example of the PCB inventory in open applications. As I said, open applications include different materials such as cables, caulks, painted objects, and other, especially in the construction facilities, you may find materials with PCB containing open applications. And you may have estimated or identified certain amounts of PCBs in open applications in use or in storage or out of use, basically waiting for disposal. So here is the first invitation to complete an inventory for open applications, specifically for open applications. I must admit that not many countries have reported inventories for open applications due to the challenges, of course, of identifying these materials, for example, in the construction sites. Jumping to the next question. This questions is about the management and the sound disposal of PCBs. Question 10 asks parties to identify if the PCB waste is managed properly or not. So you have basically 4 options, whether all of the waste is, if you can assure that all of the PCB waste is handled properly in your country, or if it's partial, then identify if most of the waste is handled properly, or if limited amount of waste is handled properly, or actually none of the PCB waste has been environmentally sound managed. Question 11 requests parties to inform whether they have developed a plan for the management, phase out, and disposal of PCBs. And again, this is very much linked to the national implementation plans. If you have developed a national implementation plan where you have included actions to phase out the use and to ensure the safe disposal of PCBs, then you should be responding yes to question 11. This plan, of course, needs to be updated periodically and revised, but of course, it's a starting point. And the GEF as a financial mechanism, the Secretariat with some of our pilot projects, we have supported countries in developing this phase out and disposal, or what we call them also elimination plans. What difficulties have you encountered for implementing this plan? So question 12 addresses the challenges of implementation of this plan, whether it's institutional capacity, technical capacity, or even financial capacity, but also, for example, the lack of facilities for disposal, for storage, and as I was saying, also analytical laboratories for identification of PCBs. You can also expand these challenges and explain others that you may have encountered during, for example, implementation of a plan or the respective projects. Question 13 asks about measures to reduce exposure. So as you may have noticed, PCBs, the phase out of PCBs, the deadline was 2025. So at the end of last year, countries should have made determined efforts to phase out the use of PCBs as much as possible. Before that, many countries were still authorizing the use of PCBs in certain quantities or certain concentrations. Many countries phase out the use before the 2025 deadline. But if some transformers were still used there, then which measures have you adopted to reduce the exposure and to minimize the releases and emissions of PCBs? So these are some of the actions that have been identified under the Stockholm Convention text to minimize the risk and minimize the exposure of PCBs. If you implemented an action plan or if you implemented a project, I'm sure you may have considered some of these. And if you have national legislation, also the risk criteria may have been introduced addressing PCBs. They may have introduced also in the legislation. One of the most challenging, 4 more questions and that's it, but one of the most challenging questions is question 14, which is addressing PCB inventories of equipment, articles, oils, and waste. We talk about open applications. Now here we're talking about all of the rest. So any contaminated equipment, any oils in barrels, personal protective equipment, contaminated soils, anything that can be considered PCB waste should be inventoried at the national level. Many countries have made their efforts to develop initial or preliminary inventories that need to be expanded to have complete inventories. Inventories are key to understand the size of the problem of a country and, for example, to look for finance. If you know the size of a problem, then for those recipient countries, you may then request for final and technical assistance to the financial mechanism. We have made some adjustments to the new reporting format. In the new format for the national six national report, you will find first what, as Lina explained, what the information you have reported from previous years. If you have not reported a PCB inventory, then this will be blank. And then we have changed a bit the way the inventories are reported to clarify and to be more specific on what type of waste and what type of material is being inventoried. So one of the things we added is, apart from the weight in tons of PCBs, we added the possibility to also indicate the number of equipment. So how many equipment are still in use and contaminated with PCBs, and how many equipment, including transformers, capacitors, etc., are being stored, waiting for treatment or disposal. So this is one new set of information that is being requested. This was discussed and agreed and proposed by the small intersectional working group. Sometimes we don't know the weight of the equipment, but we know the quantities, and that can give us a good estimation. So this is a complementary data that we are requesting now. And it is also important to identify which sectors have been covered by the PCB inventory. So in the electric world, you have the energy generators or producers, you have the energy distributors, so transporting energy long distances, and then you have the energy transporters, and then the energy distributors providing energy to each house and to each industry. All of these have electric equipment that may be contaminated. But we also have other places where we can find contaminated equipment, such as transport infrastructure, so airports, ports, railways use a lot of energy, public buildings, hospitals, universities, military bases, and the industries themselves consume a lot of energy. So medium and large energy consumers may have also equipment that may be contaminated. So it is important to clarify if the inventory has covered all of these sectors and stakeholders, or if someone is missing. And if someone is missing, there is still an option to expand the inventory and complete it. So this is another question that we have added. You will not see it responded from last cycle, and you will have to indicate the coverage of the inventory. Please note that the information now is reported in tons to be consistent with other sections of the national reports. So don't make the mistake of reporting in kilograms or another unit, because then we won't be able to compare with previous cycle reports. You also have, at the end of this section 2, the opportunity to comment and provide further information, expand on any of the questions, or make any clarification, and also to provide the link if you have a publicly available inventory or PCB management site or project that you would like to share. You have the space to do that. The final section 3 is, as I said, focusing on the disposal or destruction of PCBs. So there are 3 questions. One is about the local destruction, so the amount of liquid or equipment that has been treated or eliminated or disposed within national boundaries, so with national capacities, facilities established at the national in the country. And then questions 16 and 17 is about international trade of waste, so imports for destruction, amounts of PCB waste that has been imported to your country to be disposed and destroyed there. And 17 is about the amount of PCB waste that you have exported to another country to be treated or disposed. So for each of these questions, you can indicate which year are we talking about and how much in metric tons has been eliminated locally or abroad. Something I would like to highlight here, and this is the final question of this section on PCBs, is the importance of interacting with the competent authorities of the Basel Convention. We are talking here about transboundary movements of waste, so questions 16 and 17. And this information, it is also reported under the Basel Convention national reports, which is done every year. Unfortunately, we have seen some inconsistencies of the information that is reported to the Stockholm Convention and the information that is reported to the Basel Convention. So it is very important while preparing the information for submitting your national reports to consult both the competent authorities, whoever is in charge of controlling the transboundary movements of hazardous waste in your country, and the previous national reports under the Basel Convention. So the Basel Convention national reports, we will have a different webinar for that. There's also a dashboard, and you can extract this information from there. So it will be very important to make information consistent, and in particular for this section, that one thing that is reported in one convention is also reported in the other convention as well. For the Basel Convention, just to clarify, PCB waste is exported as Y10. So this is a waste category under the Basel Convention. And the Y10 is a very useful tool to search for this kind of exports and imports. Lina talked about sources of information. I would like to expand more specifically on PCBs. So as I said, national and local legislation. I insist on local legislation because sometimes a province, a state has also developed its own legislation and could be relevant for PCB management. Is a source of information. The national action plans or national implementation plans. PCB inventories. If you have established a software or a database where the inventories is hosted, would be a very important source of information. Projects. I've noticed many times that the country has a project, but this information or the outcomes of this project is not properly reflected on national reports. It's important to reach out to project teams, which sometimes are not the same people in charge of producing the national reports, and get the information from there. Any other national statistics or environmental reports from your country, waste registries and competent authorities. For the disposal part, it's important to talk with the people in charge of managing hazardous wastes. Customs office may also be another source of information from transboundary movements. Companies, a very interesting source of information could be the disposal companies, which are usually authorized to handle properly PCB waste or other hazardous waste, and maybe they may be able to provide information on the amounts of PCB that they have been treating so far. Scientific literature is also a very relevant source of information, including for PCBs, among others. And I want to share the link of one document presented at the last conference of the parties on the strategy for parties to meet the 2025 and 2028 goals. It's a very short document, and it highlights 10 action points that if a party has done properly, then they would be on track to meet the elimination goals on PCBs under the Stockholm Convention. Why the reporting on PCBs, and what do we use this information for? There is an established process under the Stockholm Convention that the Conference of the Parties may revise periodically the progress on PCB elimination. So parties need to report their progress, and the Conference of the Parties will assess on that progress. For that, the Small Intersessional Working Group on PCBs is working, and every 2 COPs, so every 4 years as well, we prepare a report on the progress of PCB elimination, a global report. Just to show you how information from the dashboard that Lina has shown is being extracted to produce this kind of information. For example, we know year by year how much PCB waste has been eliminated locally. And we know that on an average of 20,000 tons per year, countries have been making progress on eliminating PCBs. For transboundary movement, it's also very interesting to see that most of the regions and most of the countries have exported the PCB waste to Europe. So around 22 countries from Europe have had the capacity to receive and safely dispose PCBs all around the world. And that gives us around 15,000 tons of PCB more eliminated through transboundary movements. So this is the kind of information that we can extract from your national reports and that serve the purpose of assessing progress, in this case, on the elimination of PCBs, to assess the effectiveness of the convention, and also, as Walina was highlighting, the compliance. I finalized my presentation by providing you the links to the Stockholm Convention website, where all the information on PCBs can be found, and the training platform on PCBs, which we have actually very recent updated, and there's a specific link, a specific module on national reporting for PCBs. So most of the information I shared today, you will find it there as well. With that, I'll stop sharing my presentation. I haven't had the chance, Lina, to see the chat yet, but maybe we have some questions.
Thank you so much, Augustine, for this presentation. It was very informative. In the Q&A, we have 2 questions, and both are related to PCBs. So, do you want me to read it, or you? Yeah, I can read it. Regarding question 4, regarding measures to ensure PCBs is managed in an environmentally sound manner, if all the measures identified have been taken, however, due to lack of control, we cannot ensure that these measures are systematically being respected by PCB holders. Should we check all the measures?
Yes, this is a complex question because it would really depend on the criteria of whoever is a national focal point and official contact point on how to consider to respond to this question. I would say, of course, if measures have been adopted, for example, if legislation is in place, if technical standard has been developed to ensure, for example, the correct labeling of PCB equipment, etc., this means the measures are in place. And I would then include this information and report in which year these measures have been taken. Enforcement and implementation of the measures is a different challenge. And you have a different question regarding these challenges on implementation. So I would suggest to go to these questions on the implementation side and expand there the information of what has been the challenges, what have you achieved, and what are you lacking to achieve, or you need support to better implement these measures. But again, this is really interpretation of whoever at the national level is preparing the report. But the first step, of course, is establishing the measures. Then the section 2 is more focusing on the implementation of those measures. I would then expand information there on what are the challenges that you're facing.
Thank you, Augustine. And the second question, it's a more general question, but it is, in this case, regarding question 14, if an error amount has been reported in the last report, can we correct it now? So I don't know, either of us can answer, but please go ahead.
I can respond for question 14, and then you can expand to the rest. No, it's set in stone. You cannot change it. No, I'm just kidding. Of course you can. One of the important things of the Stockholm Convention report is that it's cumulative. So every 4 years we look back what has been done, and we have the opportunity to revise and improve the information that has been reported before. Specifically for question 14, it's particular case because we have set the system so you will see the previous information on the PCB inventory up, and then you will have the opportunity to report on the new PCB inventory format. Can you correct the previous one? Yes, you can. But then you can also have the opportunity to present new information on the PCB inventory. So in general, yes, you have the opportunity to correct and revise information. And that is very important because when we prepare the reports, for example, in my case for PCB, the progress report on PCB elimination, we update from the newest information. So if any error has been corrected in the new cycle, then we will reflect the right information in the next report.
Thank you, Augustine. And to add to this, all the questions, if you encounter an error that has been reported in previous reports, it's just to change whatever was reported and was pre-filled in this report and put the right amount. However, just a little note regarding question 14. Actually, the old table is only there for information only, so that so that old table can actually not be corrected, but you can submit the corrected numbers directly in the new table. So that is how it works for question 14. Usually you can correct all the questions directly in the questionnaire, but because we changed the format for the table 14, the old table format is only there as information, and the new is where you correct the data.
In that case, I would suggest, and thanks a lot for the question, for question 14, if there was a previous error and you are seeing it in the system, you may include a comment indicating that you have corrected, that the information in the previous inventory was wrong. If it was just an update, then you don't need to do that. But if it was actual wrong information, you can put a comment and indicate the new inventory form is correct. Please consider that. And that is what we will actually do. I don't know if it's another question. I just want to make a final comment from my side. As Lina explained, 31st of August, so in just a couple of months, we have the deadline for submission of the national reports. For PCBs, this deadline is very important. We will consider by 1st of September any report that has been received to include that information as part of the assessment on the progress on PCB elimination. And the next conference of the parties, this will be an important topic because we have already passed the first deadline, which is 2025, and we're looking towards to the deadline 2028. So we will try to include any information that comes from the 6th national report. But for that, we will need the information to be submitted on time because we won't be able to accommodate or incorporate information submitted late. And as Dina explained, many parties have challenges to submit this on time. So I'll suggest that you start working right away, contacting all of the stakeholders that you need to contact and provide information on time, because not only for PCBs, but for several processes, if submitted late, then the information from your party, from your country, will not feed into several processes that will inform the next conference of the parties.
Thank you, Augustine. That was a very, very good last clarification. Yes, you can still raise your hand or put any questions you may have in the chat, questions and answer box. If not, we are also here, both Augustine and myself, for anything you would wish to reach out to us through our emails. That's also an option. So please don't hesitate, whatever clarifications or comments or questions you may have. This webinar is recorded, so we will also post it online after it has been technically checked. Well, I don't see any further questions. Thank you very much for joining us today. It has been great to be with you, and we look forward to receiving your reports. The presentation, I just see quickly here a question. So the presentation, it will be shared also through the website. So where we have the website page for this webinar, we will share all the presentations so they can be downloaded there. Thank you so much, and have a good day or afternoon or morning. Thank you from my side.
Yes, thank you for your time. Till next time.